Let me just share with you just a little bit about him before I bring him up to speak. Patrick serves as a voice of strength for this generation. He's an architect for social change, as well as an innate ability to both influence and inspire. Patrick is one of today's most gifted leaders in both the spiritual and social arenas. Mr. Hampton's role as a youth pastor, advocate, and strategist has spanned from serving as an abstinent educator in the Hamilton County Public Schools to being the director of Goodwill Youth Advantage Mentoring Program. His commitment to fostering broad-based communication about issues related to youth culture on a local, national, and international level have led to hundreds of speaking requests as he travels the world addressing both teens and parents. As a voice for social change, Hampton is passionate about his work. The time is now, he asserts. The youth of today are the leaders of today. If we fail to sow the seeds of true education and real leadership into our young people today, we will be forced to reap the weeds of our ignorance versus the flowers of our love tomorrow. Patrick is married to his middle school sweetheart, Sharinda Hampton, and they have, this says 3, but you have 4 boys. Yes. And we all, how many of you follow Patrick on Facebook?
Yes.
A lot of us. We all have a blast following his family, of course all his other posts. We get to see his son score touchdowns, little bombs, 4 touchdowns, and the latest son, I love his name, Noah. And I love all the good comments about Noah too. But anyway, if you're not following Patrick on Facebook, look him up and start calling him. He's a great guy. Help me welcome Patrick Hampton.
Okay. Well, first of all, let me say this while he's hooking up my presentation. I want to thank the Tea Party, all of you that supported me during my school board race. I mean, you guys supported me like no other group. And I don't know if I've publicly thanked you all. I know I personally thank some of you, but I want to stand here today and thank you so much. It was sometimes where I wanted to give up and quit, and you guys would send me encouragement. You guys would send a donation, and that made me keep going. So I want to thank everyone in here tonight for your support for my school board race. So give yourselves a hand. I appreciate it. And I want to recognize 2 other people that are with me on tonight. Artez McLaughlin, he worked with me at Youth Advantage Mentoring Program. He is our Good Guys coordinator, so he came out tonight to support me, so I want to thank you for coming. And then Willie Richardson, some of you may have met him before. He's also one of our mentors with our program at Goodwill. And so first of all, I want to just kind of give you an overview of what I do and why I'm here. I work for Goodwill, Chattanooga Goodwill Industries. Most of you all know Goodwill is just a store that sells, used goods. But a lot of people don't know about the mission side of Goodwill. Goodwill started with a minister up in the Boston, Massachusetts area. His name was Edgar Hems, Dr. Edgar Hems. And this minister wanted to help the poor. And he came up with something that was very revolutionary. He had a lot of wealthy friends, and so he asked his wealthy friends to donate their used goods, and he was going to either fix them and sell them to the middle class to help the poor. Well, in the process of doing that, not only did he get so many goods that were coming in, he actually had to hire a lot of the poor people that didn't have jobs to help him fix brooms, put new straws on brooms and things of that nature. And so he is actually considered one of the first recyclers in America. And a lot of people don't know that. You hear a lot of stories that Goodwill just take your stuff and make millions of dollars. That's not true. We do make millions of dollars, but 87 cents on the dollar goes back into the community. And you're going to see a lot of that in my slide today as I show you some of the things that we do. All right. Now, basically, when we're dealing with young people, the one thing that I see in the young people in the community is that I see a lot of young people that don't have a lot of goodness in their heart. And I'm going to explain that. Every day, everything that they see it is either negative or it has something attached to it that's evil or negative. It's not a lot of goodness going on around them. When I come in contact with them in the school system, what I kind of labeled what I do is that I restore goodness into young people's heart. And the Bible, those of us that are Christians, we know that what the goodness of God is all about. But a lot of these kids don't understand what that is, the goodness of God. We hear scriptures like, surely goodness and mercy shall follow us. They don't understand what that goodness and that mercy is. And so I kind of try to help them understand that. And so tonight I am going to give you my perspective on what I see on a daily basis, every single day. And so to do this, we're going to do a little activity. I do this with every one of my classes that I do. We're going to go through an activity just to see where your perspective is and to show you that all of us in this room have a different perspective. So I want you all to look at this picture and tell me what you see. What do you see? You can speak out. Teach. How many of you see teach? How many of you see learn? Okay. How many of you still don't see learn yet? Okay. Actually, learn is here. Okay. And I do this lesson because I want young people to know that everyone has a different perspective, and it may take some people longer to see things. All right. Next one. All right. Tell me what you see. See a man playing a saxophone. Who see a woman's face? All right, let's do a poll here. Who sees the saxophone, the man playing the saxophone? Who sees the woman's face? Who still doesn't see the woman's face? Still don't see it. All right, let me see if I can outline it here for you. All right, this is her eyes. It's kind of like the light is shining on her here. This is her chin. Lips. You see it now? Who see it now? All right, who still don't see the woman? All right, a little bit more explaining. Okay, this is the outline. This would be the outline of her face here. Her hair is flowing. You see it now. Okay, who still don't see the woman's face? All right, now a couple of neat things happen there. Even though, yes, it could be a man that's playing a saxophone with a big nose, but there's also a woman's face. What I do with young people a lot of time is when we go through this, I let them know sometimes it will take time for you to see things. Sometimes you have to kind of, I saw some of you tilting your head and things of that nature just to see certain things. Next one. Let me do another one here. Somebody tell me what you see. A horse. Do anybody see anything else other than a horse? What do you see there? A frog. Now, I saw you tilting your head a little bit to try to see the frog, okay? Different perspectives, another one. Somebody tell me what you see. Good and evil. All right, now do you see, now that your brain is kind of thinking on the level of seeing things from a different perspective, it gets a little easier, right? Another one. What do you see? Who see a man with glasses? Anybody see anything else? Liar. Who see liar? All right, hit it for me. When you turn it sideways, it's actually liar. Okay? Another one. What do you see? See two people standing at a lake. Anyone else see anything else? She sees a baby. Who see the baby? Who don't see the baby? All right. Why is all the men the one that's raising their hand like I don't see anything? All right. Here we go. The baby. I'm going to outline it for you. This is the head. Look at the outline. This is a fetus. A baby like in this. This is the back. There's the feet. Here, legs, eyes, nose, mouth. Who see the baby? Now, all right, still don't see it. All right, we'll come back to it. All right, next one. What do you see? See a man standing on top of a house playing a what? Guitar. What's out there? Some people say houses, some people say people. All right? It's actually both of them are true. Okay? What do you see? Lift. Who just see a bunch of black blocks? Now, lift is in the white. L-I-F-T. How many of you see lift now? Okay. What do you see? You? Me. M-E-Y-O-U. And the last one, what do you see? Ship. How many of you see ships? How many of you see a bridge? Okay, now your brain is trained to see in two things, okay? A lot of our young people in our community only have one perspective. And it is my job as their mentor in our mentoring program is to try to get them to see things in a different perspective. What I'm getting ready to show you tonight, I am going to show you my perspective of what I see every day, and I'm going to actually try to diagnose the problem in the inner city community, okay? Now, basically, a lot of you all, from my perspective, from your perspective, this is what you see on a weekend. You may see a 13-year-old kid killed in a morning shooting. This was a young kid that was killed on Martin Luther King Day this year, all right? It was a 13-year-old. It was all on the news. And I mean, a lot of people were upset about it. They still haven't found this killer yet. But from my perspective, this is what I see. This is the young man that was killed. His name is DeAndre Southers. He was with us the Friday before. Me and Willie, this is Willie Richardson, that you see right here. And what we do is that we take these young men out of their school and we take them around in their community to different businesses. And this just happened to be Goodwill, where we were showing them about work and how this man right here, how he lost his legs and how he still works hard even though he can't walk. Now, he was with me. This is the picture of him the Friday before he was killed. So from my perspective, it's not just a headline to me, but it's an actual person that we're trying to reach. Now, let me tell you why he was shot and why he was killed. He was placed with me because his family is gang affiliated. His mother and his brothers and his mother's boyfriend all are Bloods. So the school counselor, I walk into a school and I tell them, I want the kids that nobody else wants, that's not in any program. Give me the ones that no one else wants. So they give these boys to me, and most of them have family members that are gang affiliated. Now, they don't know they're with me because of that. Some of them are Bloods, some of them come from Crips. They don't know that. This young man was killed, and this is him again, you can't really see it, but he's looking into the camera. But this young man was killed because he was mistaken as his mother's boyfriend. And they came and knocked on the door and actually shot through the door and killed him, a 13-year-old on Martin Luther King Day. While I was marching downtown, a young man was being killed. Next one. This is another young man that just last week, he ran away from home and they had everyone looking for him. We didn't know where he was. That's a headline. This is another young man that's in my program that has trouble reading. And we have to help him read, and we give him newspapers every day to help him in his reading. Okay? So, the question is, what is shaping the perspective of our young people? I am going to attempt to answer that question for you from my firsthand experience. Is it American values? Is American values shaping our young people? I say no. Is it the Constitution of the United States? Of course not. It's not. I want to tell you what I believe is the number one thing that's shaping the minds of white kids, black kids, Hispanic kids, Asian kids, is hip-hop culture. Everyone say hip-hop culture. Now let me explain that. I did not say music. I did not say hip-hop music. I said hip-hop culture, and I want to explain this to you tonight. All right. Basically, we have young people. And the main problem that I see with helping young, even African-American men, is trying to get them plugged into mainstream America. That is really my ultimate goal. I really want them saved. But if I don't get them saved and they don't accept Christ, I at least want them plugged into mainstream America, working, making wages, working hard, taking care of their family. And what I've realized is that trying to get them here, I'm having to fight through these other subcultures. And the main subculture that I'm fighting is hip-hop culture. And then you have the black culture or the Hispanic culture that you have to fight through. And so this is their main influence. And let me say this. The crazy part about this is only 72% of hip-hop is bought by suburban white kids. Black kids are not even buying the music. This is what I found out. White kids buy the music, but they don't become it. Black kids become the culture, but they never buy it. And so, what happened? In 1950, you had black men striving to be something in America. Even though they felt like there were inequalities in their world, but they were still striving to become something in America. They wanted the American dream. They wanted to own a home. They wanted a job. They wanted to do something in America. Something happened between 1950 and today. You have young men that have no desire to even be plugged into mainstream America. I'm going to explain to you exactly what happened. In the 1960s, we had Martin Luther King Jr. Our neighborhoods was led by men that believed in the gospel. They were preachers. They were teaching young men and teaching the community how to be successful, so to speak, in the 1960s. But once Martin Luther King was killed, anger and a bitterness set into the black community that's still here today. Now I want to ask you all a question. Who stepped up to lead after Martin Luther King died? It wasn't Al Sharpton. We know that. It wasn't Jesse Jackson. They stepped up to lead, but they stepped up to lead in the wrong way. And they began to feed and fester in that anger and bitterness. Okay? And so guess what happened after Martin Luther King died? In the 1970s, young black men began to lead themselves. No leader, no cause. Just think about it. In the 1960s, you had Martin Luther King that was saying nonviolent. If you're going to protest, we got to be nonviolent. Look at us today in Ferguson. Is there anyone screaming nonviolence? No. You have leaders that's telling them, yes, be violent, do whatever you have to do. And they may even come up public and say, well, we don't want them to do any violence. But behind the scenes, they are fanning the flames. Why? Because there has been no leadership in our community since the 1970s. Even our preachers and our pastors has now shaded to the back. And they're quiet. Even on domestic partnership issues, even on political issues locally, they don't say a word. Why? Because there's still anger and they're still bitter and there are still things inside of them that causes them to be silent. And a lot of it is fear of being Bill Cosby, so to speak. And so out of this fear, this is what we have today. We have young African-American men with no respect for authority, no desire to be plugged into America, and they're simply roaming the streets, and you see them every day. They roam the streets, and they have no purpose in life. Next one. So, how did this come to be? I'm going to give you a little mystery here tonight that a lot of people don't know, that this is being planned, and there are people behind the scenes that are fueling this. This is the spiritual roots of hip hop can be accredited to the ancient Egyptians and the 5% nations of gods in the earth. Africa Bambaataa, listen to this. Africa Bambaataa is the founder of hip hop, by the way. He's a former gang member and New York DJ. He traveled to Africa and studied the African Zulus and the Egyptian pharaohs, and then brought those teachings to the block parties in the Bronx. Let me explain to you how hip hop culture got started. One man in New York traveled to Africa and found out that the Zulus beat the British. And so what he did was find out the strategies that the Zulus used to beat the British. And he came back to New York and he began to teach young people about how to be a god like Pharaoh. Okay? And so, next one. So what ended up happening, this is Africa Bambaataa. Now if you look at him, he just looks crazy, don't he? You'd think nobody would follow him, right? But what has happened, his teachings are being laced in hip-hop culture and in hip-hop music. So when you see angry young black men, that in their mind they actually believe that they are gods. What he taught them is that when you were brought to America, they stripped you of your God status. This is what they're being taught. And the only way to get that God status back is rebellion. So the songs that you see them walking up and down the streets, and by the way, if you go to Dollar General store, the number one stolen item in the dollar store is, guess what? Headphones. So what's happening, they're being indoctrinated through a culture and through music. This is DJ Kool Herc. Now these guys now are about 60 years old now. They started this back in the 70s. But they are considered very influential in the hip-hop movement. This is DJ Kool Herc. And if you notice, now he's 60 years old and he looks and dresses like he's 14. Hip-hop has a way, I call it like the fountain of youth, where you have 40-year-old men that still in their minds are 15 and 14 years old. Next one. I'm going to basically explain to you what's happening behind the scenes. This is what they teach the young black men, and it's laced all through the music, and this is the doctrine they're being taught. In Egypt, now we know in the Bible, God delivered the children of Israel from where? Egypt, the house of what? Bondage. That's what it's called in Scripture. So they teach the young men the opposite. In Egypt, you were a great god, and you used the sacred drum to conjure up spirits. So now in America, in order to get back to that, you must use music to conjure up spirits. Next one. They taught in Egypt, you were able to, what was it called when you wrote symbols on the wall? Hieroglyphics. In Egypt, we learned hieroglyphics, and you would put coded messages in the wall or on the wall to be decoded for later generations. In hip hop, what do they do on the walls? Graffiti. We will tag the walls for later generations to decode. In Egypt, you were a dancer where you was able to contort your body out of the natural laws of motion as worship. In hip hop, you are a break dancer. And in Egypt, we had great prophets that spoke blessings over the people. But in hip hop, you can become that rapper and that prophet. Basically, what we are seeing in the inner city with this hip hop culture, we're seeing how God delivered people from Egypt. We're now seeing Egypt come back into the minds of our young men. But he's doing it in a way through culture and through music. Now, Africa Bambaataa is considered to be the godfather of hip-hop. He taught that hip-hop is not just music and rap, but it's a what? Culture, a way of what? Living or governing life. He also teaches covertly that rebellion is the only way for the black man to gain his superiority back. Ferguson. All over the country. The goal is to rebel against American culture. Now, the founders teach that hip-hop music, now look at this. The founders are still living, by the way, and you can go and you can YouTube, you can ask them. They will tell you, hip-hop music is only the conveyor belt to get their belief system into the minds of young people. Next. So, it's not our founding fathers that's influencing young Americans. Instead, they have found fathers that is influencing their minds. Next. I'm going to show you some of the things that's being said, that's being put in their ears, a lot of the anti-Americanism that you're seeing from the young African Americans and even other people, not just African Americans, Hispanics, even the liberals are even touting this now. Violence is more American than apple pie and Soul Train. That's Ill Bill. Jay-Z says, I blame Reagan for making me into a monster. And by the way, let me go back. Jay-Z is one of Obama's favorite rappers, and he's been in the White House many times. There's a lot of things he has said. Another quote that he says is that Jesus can't save you, but life begins when the church ends. And this is being pumped into our young people's head. Next one, this is Scarface. He said, Reagan never planned for us to rise. Kanye West, how we stop the Black Panthers? Ronald Reagan cooked up an answer. So when you see in Ferguson or all over America, when you see these young people that's burning flags, it has been put in them through this hip-hop culture. Next. And even now, they actually have their own gospel called the Gospel of Hip-Hop. Right now, even in New York, hip-hop has now become a recognized religion in New York and by the UN. I want you to listen to this. I want you to listen to what he says.
Our grandchildren will determine whether this is religion or not. Like I said, it's your children that award you these honors, not yourself. If our children come back and say, great-granddad, great-grandma, they laid this down, this is my religion, then so be it. But right now, this is about the preservation of hip-hop, which I believe cannot be preserved without a common spirit. Amen. We keep avoiding this conversation, and it's time to have it. What does our God look like? All right. Where is our God? When you are born into this community, how do you enter the world? What is our birthrights as hip-hoppers? Truth. What is our death rights? How do we get married? Do we have to go according to that law every time we want to get married, or do we have a new way to put a man and a woman or whomever together? And is it that? These types of discussions.
Now, let me basically sum up what he's just said. Next slide. He basically says, we are going to redefine who our God is. We're going to redefine religion, redefine rights, redefine marriage, and even redefine what the gospel is. Now, if we only look at this as a genre of music, we will miss it. I am here tonight telling you that it is more than a genre of music, but it is actually a conduit of anti-Americanism and anti-God and anti-gospel. What we're seeing in our communities is a direct result. These are their preachers. These are their prophets. Not the churches, the guys that you see that's pastoring the church. Your pastor is actually the person who you give your ear to. They're not giving their ear to Christian pastors. These are their pastors. So what's happening? Our youth have been bombarded with anti-American propaganda for decades through music and our what? Public education system. Youth are being taught that Christianity is a white man's religion. This is why people didn't know this, but Farrakhan was in our neighborhood this summer, recruiting. The anger and the bitterness that's there, they're recruiting for the Nation of Islam. Also, youth believe that there are no moral absolutes. So, is there any hope? Is there any hope? I want to stand here and tell you there is hope because I'm standing before you right now as a product of hip-hop subculture, as a product of a lot of these teachings. I'm going to show you how I ended up being a black conservative and being able to come out of a lot of this that I just showed you. This right here, these people represents people that I met along the way, conservative people that I met along the way that changed my perspective. Because they chose to engage me. Not me engaging them, but they chose to engage me. Hit the next button. This man right here, when I was a teenager, my father worked for SunTrust Bank downtown. There was this white guy that every time I came into the bank, I would have to go to the bank in the mornings before he took us to school. And so every time I would come into the bank, there was this rich white guy that would always call me up to his office and he would teach me a new math problem. And he would also teach me he taught me about compound interest. He taught me how taxes worked. I didn't even know how taxes work. I was like, why do they charge, I have to pay 7 cents on a dollar every time I buy something? He explained that to me. I didn't know it then, but looking back, he was teaching me fiscal conservatism. Also, this lady here, her name is Chris Franey. She worked for then AAA Women's Services, which is now Choices, which Ashley directs now. Chris Franey pulled me into her house one day, and I sat in her house. This is a white lady, a brunette lady, and she talks real fast, and she told me everything about Planned Parenthood and abortion. It blew my mind. I had no clue that abortion affected the black community like it was. I was just a young black man growing up in District 5, didn't have any clue that there was a AAA Women's Services and that abortion even took place in Chattanooga. She took 7 hours and I sat in her couch and she taught me everything she knows. I didn't know it then, but she was teaching me social conservatism. And then I met people like Mark Rist and Lori and Carol Grown and Larry Grown, and I saw them involved in the community, doing things, fighting for things they believed in. And when I saw this is what I wanted to do. This is what I was built to do. And by me meeting those people and them people influencing my life, I'm standing before you today as a black conservative. Why am I telling you that? It's because I'm telling you that it's because our city needs you. Our young black and brown men need you to engage them just like you engaged me. All they have right now is liberal Democrats using them for their votes, come around every time it's election time, and we never see them again. God has called me as a conservative to stay in the inner city to have impact on these kids. And I'm going to show you how you can help me do this. What can we do as conservatives? We can expose the truth, engage the culture, and empower young people. How are we going to do this? We do this by, this is a group of young men that I mentor at Tyner High School. When the Ferguson thing first happened, I needed to find a police officer that would go and stand before them and tell them what police officers do. So we got together, and this is Officer Brock with the Sheriff Department, and he came into these young boys and he told them everything they needed to know about the law. They got to ask him any question they wanted to about the law. They wanted to ask him, how does he feel, when he pulls up behind a black person? And he said, I can't see inside of the car. I don't know if they're black, you're black or not. And so he was able to explain to them that all he wants to do at the end of the day is go home to his wife. And so today, these young black men have a relationship with a police officer where they know that this guy is not just out to get me. What else can we do? These are young men, as you can see here, at federal court. I know Judge Starnes has done this before, where you have young people come into court and you explain to them what you do. This is what we need, because let me tell you something, they're not being taught this in the schools. They're not being taught civics in the schools. So they don't know how America works. They have no clue of what capitalism is. They just think they are being oppressed by the white man. And so what we have to do as conservatives, as the Tea Party, as any civic group, is to be able to expose them. This young man put on a robe, and he told me afterwards that is what he wants to be. But it took him having to put on a robe. And then she began to explain to them how judges keep order in our society. Next one. Then we take them to see Rob Filyall, where he takes time out of his day and he sits down with these young people and he explains to them that he's not just out to put them in jail. So these young people got a chance to meet Rob Filyall before they got in trouble. But they got a chance to see what he's all about and why he chose to be a judge. Then you have businesses. This is Thompson Engineering. I call him Mac. He was actually my first, when I got married, he actually was my landlord. And so I called him up and I said, hey, I got a group of young people that need to understand how bridges are built and how engineering works. And so he said, well, bring them down. And I bring these young people down to his office and he explained to them how he got into engineering and what it takes to be an engineer. And then this is Larry Grown, of course. And we brought the kids to city council. And he sat down with them for an hour, and they had so many questions about the city and why did the light go off here, and how much does it cost for sewers? Where does when we flush the toilet, where does that go? And Larry was able to explain to them. And even out of this, a young man took hold to Larry. His name is Jamal, and Larry went and picked him up one day and took him around the whole city with him. And he called me at 11 o'clock at night. He said, Mr. Patrick, those Republicans aren't that bad. And this young man is like 19 years old. He said, we went out to dinner and it was nothing but white people and Republicans. They're not racist at all. I said, yes, Jamal, that's what I've been trying to tell you all this time. But it took Larry to pick him up and to spend a day with him for him to see. And I think he even went to a Republican dinner or something y'all went to. He went there and he is forever changed because of that. I saw what he posted on your wall just the other day. He is forever changed because someone engaged him. And then I took him up to Nashville where we go and we met the governor. We went into the state house and we saw how they vote on laws. And I want them to understand where Tennessee used to be and where it came from and where they are today. I want to give them some type of historical perspective. And then this is them cleaning up our Goodwill stores, wiping windows. They're planting gardens. Why? Because I want them to understand that if you want to live in America and you want the American dream, you have to work hard. That's something that our young people is not being taught today. And so these are 3 young men that went through our program that are now plugged back into American culture. They are working at Bilo. We network. Artez, that's part of his job, is to go out and talk to managers and say, listen, I got some young people that I'm training and I want to plug them into whatever job you have. And these young men went through 3 years and they're all working at Bilo right now. What is my greatest need? My greatest need is that I need good people like you. I don't even need money. Goodwill makes millions of dollars. I told you that, right? They make millions of dollars, and they really take care of me and allow me to impact kids. But what I need is good people like yourselves to come alongside of me, whatever career you may have been in, whatever hobby you like to do. I know Mark races cars and stuff, and I got a couple young men that loves that. And so we're going to get together and try to get them down there to a racetrack. I need good people like you to help me impact kids in the inner city. This is a lady that she comes by and she helps the girls. She comes and talks to the girls. This is what I need from you. Thank you all so much for listening to me. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Thank you.